Hello, and good day. Thank you once again for joining us this beautiful afternoon, morning, wherever it is that you might be joining us for. We welcome you to the Marketing Analytics Africa exclusive webinar on AI, on how AI is transforming marketing across Africa. Today's section, from insight to action, is all about practical frameworks Africa brands are already using to win with AI, from personalization to content to sales, loyalty. We are going to be having conversation, be showing you practical experience. My name is Victor Ujakina, and with me today is Maurice Igugu, the Chief Marketing Officer at Stanlenberg, a Work Award 2025 judge. Is also Advan board member, board executive member, and one of the foremost experts driving AI-powered innovation in the African markets. Maurice will guide us through proven localized AI marketing playbooks and how we can adapt them to deliver results in our own markets. I promise you it's going to be a very interesting section this afternoon. And this webinar is divided into two sections. The first section, we are going to hear and see Maurice dive through the playbook, through the guide, and give us the how-to of how to use and exploit AI for the African market. And on the second section, you have the opportunity to ask your questions. So I'll encourage as many one of us as possible this afternoon. So please note your questions, ask as many questions as possible. Before I move to first, I want to invite Maurice to the stage at this moment. Hi, Maurice. Good afternoon.
Hello.
And good to have you.
Thank you, Victor. And yeah, good to be here as well.
Thank you so much for joining us this very beautiful afternoon, morning, from wherever the various audience might be joining us from. We can't wait to hear you and you know hear what you have to share with us this afternoon. But before I leave the stage for you to make a presentation, what are we expecting this day? What are we likely to be leaving this webinar with at the end of today?
Well, primarily, we want to look at what we're not going to be talking about AI in terms of what it is, but we'll be looking at the application of AI. Why is it that it is urgent right now for us to begin to consider and begin to use it as a lever for our businesses and even individually as well? Why is it so urgent at this moment in time? That's number one. Number two, what are other businesses doing across Africa? What are businesses doing, and how can we learn from that playbook? Then we'll hear people's questions and do the best we can to answer them.
Thank you very much, Maurice. At this stage, I'm going to leave the stage. I can't wait to, I have my pen as well as my book here, so I really cannot wait to hear you dive into this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Maurice.
Before you go, the slides, are they already broadcast? Can everyone see the slides? Great. All right. Okay, so good morning again, or good afternoon, wherever you're listening from. And we're just going to run through this. It's maybe 15 minutes. I'd like to give you more time to ask questions, really. So I'll just go through this quickly and then hear what questions you have. So AI and its implication. We've heard so much about AI. There's so much talk about AI right now. And the question really to ask is it just glitz and glamour? Is it just funfair? Is there something tangible in it that can actually bring return on investment? A recent research that was done across Africa, for example, shows that South African businesses will usually have very low expectations in terms of they wouldn't the tendencies for them not to want to jump on AI because they consider the return on investment not very plausible. But the research also shows that once they jump on it and they begin to see results, they seem to be even more eager to build AI systems. So it just shows that there's an initial barrier of trust. Is it something that's feasible? Is it something that I can use? Is it something that can help us as a business, or even as an individual? Right. So we'll look at some of these considerations, and then we will proceed from there. AI, is AI going to replace our jobs? Um, I am a firm advocate for augmentation, which is that AI is supposed to help to enhance, not necessarily to replace human endeavors. And so it brings me back to a time in history when something similar to this happened, and we call it the Industrial Revolution, where suddenly people who used to craft with their hands, create stuff with their hands, realized that there were machines coming on stage that could mass produce what they would take time to create with their hands. And it was becoming a situation where they seemed to look like they were running out of their jobs. Um, a lot of kickbacks, a lot of fights around that period. How do we proceed? But obviously, the wise ones will invest in the machines and then see how they can scale their businesses up. So, in a situation where you could maybe in a week churn out a certain number, you can multiply that by 100 or so because you now introduce machines into it. Now that was more of physical energy, that was more of muscles, because it had to do with machines um, augmenting what humans could do. But the environment we find ourselves today is more of cognition. So it's a brain capacity. It's what we can, what was once an exclusive for humans, which is cognition. Now we find machines able to help us in that area to not just augment, but also to expand what's possible, improve what's possible, and then exponentially also improve the output. So that's where we are right now. We're in a world where there is some sort of people are not quite comfortable with it, whether they lose their jobs or not. So there's some people not wanting to jump on it. We even have systems regulating against AI, trying to ensure that they manage how quickly it is adopted. But the truth is, this is where we are, and we have to get to a point where we embrace it because that's our future. It's supposed to augment, and we'll see along the way how that should feature in our plans and in what we're actually building. All right. So the big picture is, it has been estimated that AI in itself by 2030 thereabout should be able to infuse into the global economy about 20 to 30 trillion dollars. And now, in a somewhat conservative expectation, if the African continent is able to get about, say, maybe 10% of that global global sum, we should be able to get maybe a 1.5 trillion infused into the African environment itself, which gives us this huge, should I say, possibility of what can happen with AI if you look at it. So the economic potential is staggering. It's about 1.5 trillion in or by 2030, and so as we listen, the question to ask yourself is, in what way can I actually begin to lead in whatever environment I'm in AI in such a way that I can drive productivity, and then I can also benefit from this huge opportunity that's going to open up by 2030. So again, the question a lot of people ask is, who's my competition? Why is this so urgent? Is it the Silicon Valley companies? Are those the people I'm trying to compete with? And what we find as we go on, we'll see that the evidence and what shows, the stats are showing, is that we have a lot of localized AI companies that are built, that are coming up across Africa, and your competition could be very much next door. And so if you don't step up, then you'll find that 2 years, 3 years down the line, it becomes a huge hurdle for you to even enter into the play. What has already been somewhat solidified in terms of what your competition has done. So it's imperative that leaders, market leaders, and across all industries begin to look into how these capabilities that AI brings to the table can be utilized and used to enhance whatever you're currently doing, and obviously improve your return on investment. So obviously the challenges, and some of the challenges that we've been facing in Africa are challenges around technology. Technology isn't very present. We have issues with power, for example. And so if you look at it, there seems to be some sort of a dichotomy, and it's hard to place, because on one hand you find these huge problems, but on the other hand you find businesses who are already using the AI technology to enhance what they do. And we'll get into why that is important and what we need to do at that point. All right, so today's goal, we'll see how we can close the gap with real world AI marketing playbooks designed specifically for the African continent, our reality. Okay. All right, so why is it important that we act now? I've mentioned a couple of factors, but I'll just again reiterate them. Number one, the fact that there's a market in hyper growth. The AI retail market in Africa is projected to explode from $174 million in 2024 to about 1.1 billion by 2032, which is a huge growth, as you see. And it's not just happening within the retail market, it's happening all across industries. And that's the impact that AI is having in all of these industries. Okay. And this isn't just external investment. Okay. In other words, not just companies from outside that are investing in Africa here. We're having localized businesses, about 2,400 AI focused companies across Africa also actively playing in this field. And the important part of it is that about 41% of them are homegrown, and they're startups, which means they're not huge and established, they're startups. And that gives us a good picture of how it's actually that is happening in Africa. The huge dichotomy that I spoke about, on one hand, you have lagging infrastructure, and on the other hand, you have leading innovation. Okay, it's hard to envisage, but the best way that it has been explained is the concept of leapfrogging, technological leapfrogging, where you find a situation where out of almost nothing, you find this huge society is able to jump into the most recent and advanced technologies. The best picture that I sort of have here as an example of what has happened in the past, especially with Africa, is when it comes to mobile, the telephone industry. We had landlines, wires, and cables. A lot of advanced countries typically will grow through a process first, but it seems like this leapfrogging, we skip that middle part and just embrace new technology. From almost no landlines across Africa, no networks for the individual, we just saw a sudden huge rise in mobile telephones, and such that it looked like we just embraced the very most recent technologies. And right now, I even hear that Africa has about the highest rate of mobile phone penetration across most societies. So that's kind of what the leapfrogging is, and we see that pattern again repeat itself, especially in the area of AI, where it looks like the technology is in there. We don't have power, we don't have cloud computing, we don't have, apart from South Africa maybe, we don't have those infrastructure, those fast computers that help, the AI industry thrive. But suddenly it seems like we see local industries, local companies begin to grow and begin to build something quite local, but it's having very serious impact in that field. Um, so again, we find that across most should I say societies, Africa is one of those countries where the government is really not doing as much in terms of adopting, implementing, and encouraging AI technology. But what we find, on the other hand, is that the private companies are highly embracing that technology, and it's helping with that leapfrogging that we talked about. So about 40% of African institutions are already experimenting in one way or the other with some AI technology, and that's really huge. Right. So the key takeaway is your competition isn't someone from another part of another part of the world, but is someone close to you who's already testing AI, implementing AI, and getting ahead with AI. And if you don't get involved, then you realize that 2, 3 years down the line, it may be too late for you. Okay. Um, okay. Then number three, we're establishing the reasons, we're establishing some of the unique peculiarities with the African continent. Unlike most regions who use AI to optimize existing systems that already exist, what Africa is particularly known for and is doing is finding problems. This is particularly important aspect. So what Africans are using AI for is to find problems and then use those AI systems to solve those particular problems. And there are huge examples, whether it's in the medical industry, where access to doctors is a problem, especially with this jackpot thing. Doctors moving out, and we have the ratio of a typical Nigerian to access to one doctor is quite low, is quite poor. But you find that we're looking for systems to solve this particular problem. So, for example, there's this company we partnered with at some point from Sterling, who use drones and AI technology to deliver drugs and deliver telemedicine to very remote areas in the north of Africa. So that's one example, and then many other examples of companies who actually implemented something similar to this across the nation. So it's a peculiar situation where we're not just optimizing systems, but solving real problems that are African and only African. And when it comes to fintech as well, we have a lot of companies who are now deepening the issue of inclusion using AI technology as well. Our approach to governance is also distinct. With African Union's continental AI strategy is explicitly development oriented, which speaks again to what I just discussed, solving real life problems. All right, so looking at some of the playbooks that have been implemented across the examples that we have across the continent, what people have done, we can pick out maybe 3 or 4 particularly important areas where I think we can start considering. Again, these playbooks are born out of what we see that most of these companies are already doing, and how that we can also begin to look into those areas in our own particular businesses and fields. So number one is hyper-personalization engine. It's building an engine that considers your customer as an individual. As Sterling would say, your one customer bank. And it's a concept we built long ago before AI became mainstream. But the whole idea is, how can you make your customer such that your deliberations and everything you're doing around him or her becomes individualized and personalized to the point where they feel so should I say so respected in that sense, right? Rather than this bulk attitude we've always had, where we just put our customers in huge segments and push emails to them, hoping that somehow they will respond. So that's the hyper personalization engine. It's being able to see your customer as an individual and then react to them, not just react, but even predict what they're going to do, what they're, and helping them before it even becomes a problem. All right. And three-step process that's very important when it comes to hyper personalization is number one, data. Data is so important, and I think that, as you know, across Africa, data has been a huge data collection has been a huge issue. And I think that if we as Africans want to particularly begin to build our local systems, AI systems, then we must then begin to consider how we collect data and how clean our data should be. um, you find, for example, a lot of the technologies that we currently use are built on global data, not particularly African. And as a result of that, the nuances, the peculiarities of the African consumer isn't quite considered, and I mean, I remember using a Suno tool for music to generate music, let's say 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, 4 or 5 months ago. Um, I'll try to. I mean, if you try to generate say an R&B song, it's quite cool. It sounds like interesting, but try and generate something that has maybe African flavor, like Afrobeat. It begins to mess it up, and that's because the data it was trained in isn't localized as an African. I see improvements now. I see that it's getting much better now, but that's obviously because they're beginning to see that there's adoption from the African market. So data is important, and our localized data, as a matter of fact, first party data for every single organization should be taken so seriously across all touch points. How can I collect data and collect it in such a way that it can be utilized? That's number one. Um, so aggregating customer data from all touch points is important. And then we go into the next step. Now that I have that data, how do I analyze it for insight? Because as you know, data on its own is useless till you can get insight from it. And once you're able to, so that has to do with deploying special machines to be able to predict human behavior, what they're about to do, what they've done in the past, how you can predict what they're going to do in the future, and then tailor communication to them that helps optimize their capacity, the capacity of your engine to, should I say, um, optimize return on investment. So your customers most likely going to take an action because you understand them better. And obviously, the next step will be action, which is where you now trigger personalized product recommendations, dynamic pricing, not one size fits all, because you understand the individual and you understand the localization of each um, um, data point. You're able to communicate to the individuals perfectly better. All right. So again, you have systems, people who've implemented similar systems across Africa. I wouldn't want to mention the particular company, but there's a company who you know of. They're into e-commerce who've been able to estimatedly get up to 24% of total revenue just by optimizing their AI systems, in order to recommend products to customers, in order to, that thing you see when you make a purchase. If you bought this, you could, I mean, people who bought this will also bought this kind of thing. So it comes all from AI intelligence and what the data is saying. Similarly, South Africa Stick a Lot uses these techniques to significantly increase click-through rates and conversion. So the bottom line is this hyper personalization, what it will achieve for us if we can get there is a situation each individual finds the reason to click more, to buy more, and you also get to enjoy more retention and customer loyalty because you understand the customer and the customer understands that you do. All right, playbook two, which is the second area that we'd like to look into. I see it's already 25 minutes. So all right, let me just run through. So again, when it comes to content creation, it's another area where people are actually utilizing a lot of AI to improve themselves. And the playbook is simple: define your brand voice. There are tools that you can use like Jasper. Once you're able to define your brand voice, know how your brand reacts, how your brand should react, how they talk, then you use generative AI to optimize your communication, improve improve how you sound, then also increase the volume that you can now generate. And then obviously the most important aspect that you need to consider is that there must always be a critical aspect of having humans to review the chain of events as they happen, which is called generally human in the loop. So there must always be some sort of intervention there where humans bring in that nuance that is expected for the particular market. Um, the recommended percentages, if you want to think of it that way, is an 80-20, where you use 80% optimize AI, but you have to have that 20%. So the whole concept of will humans be replaced? Hardly, because they're still very much needed. And then you have a cautionary tale where this human in the loop conversation happens, where you find a company like Safaricom who decided to produce a TVC, some football event with using AI. And what happened was uh, maybe because AI wasn't that right now, I think we're in a better place. But you had this TVC, we had issues with fingers, 5 fingers, and 6 fingers instead of 5 or 4 fingers, faces that didn't look really African. And it got a lot of backlash. Backlash for two reasons. One, because the human in the loop wasn't quite in the process. In other words, they could have spotted those things and corrected them. They didn't. Number two is the fact that people were threatened. Like, imagine, because I mean, think about it. Back in the day, if you wanted to produce a TVC, you went to somewhere like South Africa and spent millions and millions of naira to do your recording, to do your editing. There's a lot of revenue with that. But with AI, you sort of don't need a lot of that, and people generally felt threatened, and there was a backlash, in that. But Coca-Cola is a typical example of a company who's been able to use this particular content playbook because they created a system. You can go read up Create Real Magic campaign. They created a system where it was user generated content using AI once again to enhance the campaign, and they definitely saw a 6% revenue increase in their endeavors. Now there is the Intelligent Lead and Sales Accelerator. I guess I'll just stop when it's exactly 12:30. Um, and how we use AI also to automate lead generation, predictive lead scoring, and then augment the sales process. There's a story that happened. I think this is not quite African. About I think was it China or so, where an AI sales agent outperformed by a large number, um, outperformed their human counterparts, because I mean it's live sales, and they outperformed the human counterpart, giving us a hint as to how optimized the systems can be and how much we can actually generate more revenue if we do it right. Again, I'll just go to the next one. Now, there's the whole concept of retention and loyalty, and why this is important is because it's been said that it's up your present customer. Um, it's about 5 to 25 times more expensive to acquire a new customer, especially within the African ecosystem, as than to just retain the customers you already have. So it's actually a growth strategy if you spend time ensuring that your customers are retained rather than going to chase new ones. Yeah, so how do you do that? Number one, you have AI systems that can predict churn. Churn is when your customers want to go and stop using your product or service. How do you tell? You see a pattern, you see what has happened before because you have the data that you've been accumulating and you can predict. And then you have a system that automatically triggers a message to that person, whoever it is, automatically without your intervention, saying, look, I realize that you need this information in order to make this decision rather than quit. How about if you do this? And with that alone, you find that probably up to 60 or 70% of your customers will be retained. because they, again, personalized messages, but they feel that you know and you get them. Okay. Then obviously deploying loyalty programs that are not very generic, in the sense that you can almost optimize to give offers to people based on the locality and where. For example, in Nigeria, the offer you want to give someone in Lagos may be different from the offer you want to give someone in, let's say, a very remote part of the country, because you understand that their economic backgrounds, economic conditions may be slightly different. So that optimization is what AI is able to do to sustain and keep your customers on board. All right. So I think I'll just skip all of this since my time is almost up, so we can go into questions. I think the slides will be shared. The slides are sort of self-explanatory. Three challenges we face with AI. Number one is infrastructure and data deficit. Um, and what we need to do in those areas is to prioritize mobile first. They're cheaper and obviously more accessible by most people. Low bandwidth solutions that invest aggressively in collecting your own high quality first party data. Number two, human capital gap. We have a huge deficit in this area. So rather than employ people, upskill the people who are already working in your teams or in your businesses who have interest in AI. Upskill and reskill. It's a more sustainable way to drive AI adoption within your system. The number three, the regulatory maze, and being able to, for example, you have systems in Africa, regulators who will bill you and charge you because you used an AI system to do your content. How do you manage all of that, and how do you work around it to ensure? So there are workarounds that obviously some of it's trade secrets you can't really share here. Okay, and then finally, while we wrap this up, the three-step ways to adopt AI. The advice really is, do not. Um, a lot of people just want, because of how fanciful it feels, just want to spread their tentacles everywhere and try and do as much as they can. The advice really is to focus on one area: crawl, walk, and then run. Focus on one high impact area, solve a problem, focus on solving a problem. Once you're able to prove ROI, your return on investment, you're most likely going to get adoption from the top, and they're most likely going to get involved and drive the AI journey in whatever organization you're in. Okay, so that's probably where we'll stop. I'd just like to cast for 1 minute a future look at what things may be looking at. Right now, we have computing as we know it. There is the opportunity also for quantum computing, which is way, way ahead of whatever technology we have now. And when that happens, there'll be hyper personalization, and there's a whole world that is out there. That I mean, a lot of possibilities, and we already have quantum computers. Yeah, they're expensive. They're not much democratized now, but the possibility is that once this happens, once again we enter into another hyperdrive that will probably push AI to the next level. All right, so that's kind of the future we're looking at. I cannot talk about AI in any way without mentioning the fact that you must understand the ethical considerations in whatever AI systems you're building. So the questions of should I build in house, whether you build in house, whether you adopt, the ethics of what you're doing is very important. And because one lawsuit can wipe away all the profits that you probably have made. All right, so thank you very much. I'll stop here. Maybe the questions will bring some of the things I should have touched as well um, up. So thank you very much, Victor. Okay, we can't hear you yet.
Hello again. I keep forgetting the fact that I need to mute myself.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. That was very, very educative. Please understand that you can ask your question, drop your question in the comment section. We'll try as much as we can within the time that we have to answer as many questions to take as many questions as possible. Uh, but before I go into our question and answer section, I wanted to this webinar is proudly sponsored by Accurate Experience. They've been one power some of our webinar in recent time. They are a marketing agency. Let's hear a message from our sponsor. Uh, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Welcome back. And Maurice, it's been a very insightful section this afternoon. And I was just thinking of what you mentioned earlier about the fact that by 2030, which is less than 5 years from today, the AI opportunity in Africa is estimated at about $1.5 trillion. That's a lot of money. That's so much fund just sitting for brands and marketing guys within the African ecosystem to grab. And so let me ask my very first question this afternoon. So why do we act? Why, as marketer, why must we act now? What's driving the urgency for AI in Africa?
No, right. So, the truth of the matter is, first of all, as I mean, the issue of who is my competition. The competition is sitting next door, and the competition is already adopting it. You know, the stats say about 40% of organizations across Africa, established organizations, are already utilizing, testing, and trying AI in one way or the other. If you don't, and if you don't jump on it, you probably become the dinosaur in the room. And as we build upwards, it becomes more difficult to get into the system. So it's urgent that we get in now as marketers and begin to utilize it to improve our craft, our marketing craft.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So my second question would be, looking at the AI and trajectory, right? Leapfrogging in Africa, and we know how to leapfrog things easily,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And we are also mobile first. When it comes to mobile first innovation, Africa is at the forefront.
mm.
But how does the Africa's unique AI trajectory shape the way marketers should approach AI into these markets?
All right. So again, I mean, if you go across industries, I just want to highlight this one thing. If you go across industries, you find that a lot of people are waiting for the perfect opportunity to jump in. The excuses they give is we don't have the right data yet. You speak to a company, you need them to jump on the AI trend because you think they can, and the question is, our data isn't even perfect yet. So what are we building on? And similar issues with technology, similar issues with the availability of, let's say, cloud computing and all of that. Speaking to leapfrogging, the concept, and how I think marketers should begin to look at this is things don't have to be perfect for me to start utilizing this these opportunities. Because if I wait for that perfect moment, it's going to pass me by. A lot of people are already utilizing it. So how do I jump into that picture and begin to do something? So start small. That's the thing. Start with your small tools that you're already using. As an individual, start small. And number two, based on all the conversations we've had, um, look for problems to solve. Don't address AI like it's a shiny tool that you just want to brandish, but find a problem that you think is very critical within your sphere of operations. Solve that one problem, because there's also, like, the case with South Africa that I mentioned. There's a barrier sometimes in organizations where your leadership doesn't believe that this is something that can be of value. So if you find one problem, solve the problem, prove that there's return on investment on it, you get better adoption, and then you can scale from there.
Great. Thank you very much. Again, let me mention that you can drop your question in the comment section. We'll take as many as we can. Going back again to what you said earlier in your presentation, you had mentioned 4 practical playbook. And I love the example you gave around how the Africa, the e-commerce business that we all know, whose name I'm not going to mention, use personalization to drive return on investment, to drive sales for a brand. Then you also mentioned the automated content factory, right? And you also gave us some example there. But one of the things that we've seen, especially within the African market, is how international brand, or how there's been a lot of, would I say copying? Not relative, not copy per se, of how brands come up with innovations and without really considering local nuances, right? So in this case, again, in your presentation, you had mentioned also that we don't have enough data, and some of the AI platforms don't actually have the accurate data to be able to give the kind of results that resonates with the African markets majorly. So how do you balance AI generated content with cultural relevance, with the African cultural relevance? How can marketers and brands managers ensure that whatever it is that they are generating using AI is considered vis-a-vis the cultural relevance of the market for which they operate in?
Hmm. Okay, so again, I spoke about the 80-20 rule, which I consider to be a very strong way you can enforce that. 80% AI generated content and 20% local content. And what I mean is humans in the loop, which means human beings must be involved in that process. What I see a lot of organizations do is just copy whatever. Let's use a typical example, ChatGPT. You're trying to do an ad for, let's say, TVC, and go online and you ask ChatGPT a question. It gives you content. You carry that content and push it straight for production. That's going to give you generic outcomes. But if you take what you have generated, and this is where the 20% comes in, and you now optimize it for your local audience, you take what you have and you can fine tune it and clean it up. Bring in that local, for example, pidgin that you want to, because when you ask ChatGPT to give you pidgin, there's a way it gives you that's different from how you actually speak. So that's very important in order to produce a local content. There's a flip side to it. We have a lot of tools that currently exist. The more we use them, the more we provide data into the global pool that helps them fine tune for our own audience. I used an example of Suno. When Suno.com, which is a music generation tool, first came out, if you tried to generate an Afrobeat sound, it was extremely ridiculous, okay, the way they pronounced words. But however, as we keep, it seems like as we keep utilizing it, we produce a pool of data that they can also use to optimize. So when the next version comes, it gets better. And so that's another way to look at it. Get on the tools, use those tools, provide data that the global data that can be optimized for your own locality as well. But I think the most important thing is do not verbatim take what you have from any AI system and just deploy. Human in the loop is very important.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the answer. So I go into the next playbook. You mentioned intelligence lead and sales accelerators. So you work in the financial sector and leading one of the big brands within the Nigerian market. And how are you using AI to improve lead generation and conversion for your brand? And how can other fintechs within the market also leverage on, what are the tools that they can also leverage to also drive such?
Okay, good. I'll just use my particular example, especially when it comes to customer experience, what we've done. I think we implemented this about, say, 8 months back. So yeah, just roughly around when the hype was just beginning. Um, but across the entire so-called value chain of customer acquisition, at every touch point across the value chain, AI can help you optimize, whether it has to do with your first contact with the customer and how you collect data, to how you process that data and get insight from it, and how you now come back to message a customer. And eventually, if your customer does, this person becomes a customer, actually, how you eventually retain in terms of loyalty, you can optimize. But one of the things we've done to improve customer experience, particularly, is that we created a chatbot we called Naya. So it's on sterling.ng/Naya. If you go there, you'll also get to see what it looks like. So basically, helping to reduce the number of requests. Because what we found is two things. One, people come to the website primarily to look for information. And so that information, many times they have to scroll from page to page looking for there's a search bar there. But obviously when you click on the search bar, it's not so optimized, you know. And so you literally see customers spending close to 10, 15 minutes looking for what they need to see. But with a chatbot, all you need to do is ask a quick question. You don't need to read through an entire FAQ. Your direct question, it gives you the response. And then because it is also an AI chatbot, it's not just a chatbot that picks questions, regurgitates questions, it's also able to profess solutions to you, have real-time conversations with you. So for example, you can ask it, okay, you need me to send an email to customer service based on this. Can you help me draft the email? And the AI chatbot can draft the email that you just need to copy and use, you know. So that kind of thing. Number one, what it does is less people now need to call contact center because they find their answers here, and it's fast, it's optimized, you know. And then there's less frustration also from customers who really need answers. So your chatbot is a very powerful way to also help customer experience, and also basically, and then you can use chatbots for sales too, you know. So people come in, I'm sure we've seen it. You come on the website and you see those chatbots, you can quickly ask questions,
Yeah.
and they can close out sales really, you know. And then the example I mentioned of uh, somewhere, I think it's in China, where an AI sales team actually outperformed their human counterparts.
Interesting.
You
Very
know,
interesting. So takes me to the last playbook, which is a proactive retention and loyalty loop. Interestingly, our last speaker on the webinar, Larry Basanta, the CEO of Optima AI, mentioned, gave an example of how he regularly will visit a restaurant in Lagos, and each time he goes there, he collects his data, and he was hoping that over time they will be able to use that data to send him personalized message to be able to retain him in terms of what he constantly buy there. But what if only used the data for was just for for that specific moment, basically. So why is AI driven retention a game changer for the African brands? And can you give us an example of brands that are already implementing retention and loyalty loop, basically?
Okay, so a typical example, obviously, this is very much pronounced when it comes to e-commerce, but even fintechs and other industries can do benefit from this as well. But in terms of in terms of data collection, the problem most times we have is that we don't have the system. We collect a lot of data. Just going back to the example of the eatery that you mentioned, we collect a lot of data, but that data sits either in silos, so they don't talk to each other. And so we don't have a unified system that sees a 360 degrees view of the customer. And so we can't make intelligent decisions, you know. And that's one problem. Number two is we don't even have the system to plug that data into that AI system that helps us optimize and then generate insight from us for us. So collecting data is one thing. Making sure the data, you have a dashboard or a system that gives you a 360 degrees view of the customer at every point in time helps you make better decisions overall. And if we don't have that, that becomes a problem. And I know there are tools that can help us do that, tools like Salesforce. But Salesforce is huge for big because of the cost implications. But you have HubSpot that can also give you a beautiful CRM dashboard that helps you see your customers properly. But again, in terms of what value that can give to you, if you understand the customer, you understand what purchase patterns he has, you can make decisions based on it. You can decide to give loyalty instead of a one size fits all loyalty system that generally doesn't quite cut it for every single person. You can now decide to, almost individualize your loyalty. So imagine if if you understand how much, let's say you understand how much I'm able to spend based on my previous patterns of spending, you can actually give me an individualized discount system, as opposed to if someone else who's spending so much more comes on board. Those kind of experiences can also help with loyalty, help also with retention. So that's just one example of one way that can be done.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go to the comment section now. So I hear comments. I have comments from Favor. Yeah, Favor is saying thank you so much. Favor is saying thank you, and she also do mention that she wish this could be longer. Favor, we are put you hear it first from me today. We are putting together a live seminar that will happen. We will announce the date and time. We'll have the opportunity to bring Maurice back and some of our speakers, and you have the opportunity to have a sit down, listen to them, and ask as many questions. It won't be an hour rush kind of thing that we currently have. The date and time will be shared with us as we go. Also, moving further down, uh, okay, so she mentioned that she has a question that she wanted to ask, but you already answered the question. I have a question here from Samuel Alabi. Samuel is asking, how is your bank leveraging AI to drive deeper customer engagement across the African diverse markets? And what challenges have you faced turning insights into meaningful relevance?
Okay, so again, I've talked about Naya, and the good thing about Naya is that you can actually chat with it in Pidgin. So you can actually chat with Naya
Oh,
in Pidgin,
nice.
and yeah, and hopefully we'll get to the point where it will also be voice. You can also have a voice conversation with Naya, and then you can even maybe chat with it in your local dialect. So we're looking at those possibilities already. But again, some of the biggest challenges across all industries is actually data. The siloed data actually is a lot of problems. Again, it shouldn't stop you from building. It shouldn't stop you from diving into utilizing AI. But yeah, it's a huge problem, and we need to start looking at it. At the point of data collection, we need to be able to ensure that we have I mean, it's better if you're just a startup and you're just building now because you can incorporate those things already. But if you already have data, huge data that you've collected wrongly, cleaning up your data becomes a huge task. And this thing I'm saying is not just in Africa, it's actually it's a global problem. But again, it shouldn't stop us from building.
Thank you so much for that. I have another question also from Samuel, who is asking, can you share an example? We've talked about, we've seen a lot of people talk about the success of AI, what AI is doing, how they are using AI to drive return on investment and drive attribution, increase performance of their team and all of that, right? More often than not, we don't like to talk about our failures. So this next question is asking, can you share an example where AI marketing strategy applied failed? And if any that you know of or have heard of, or where it's underperformed, and what are the key learnings from that? Uh,
Okay, I mentioned Safricod initially, and that's a very it's a case study that we need to look at, and I talked about why the problem existed. So again, with Safricon, they wanted to create a TVC. It's for some football event. But what they didn't do right is that they did not take their time to ensure the human element of proper editing to ensure that the downsides that AI was throwing up was minimized to the least. So you had people whose hands were like six fingers in the TVC. You had weird faces and weird looks, and this was probably a few months back when AI was still developing. Some of us are very familiar with that spaghetti eating. What's this actor's name again? Um, um, his name skips me here, but I mean, we can compare what we had before and what we had now. It's much better. So I'm sure if South Africa had probably done what they did now, it'd be much better. But yeah, that's one thing. That's one case study where it didn't turn out well. Two reasons why it didn't turn out well. Number one, people feared for their jobs, and number two, um, they could see the flaws in the video. So that's one particular case, and I just want to speak a bit more about the return on investment for that's possible with utilizing AI tools to generate content, for example. I'll give you one very simple case study. I want to shoot a TVC. Okay, I need to get my models in place. I need to, you know, it's a lot more expensive and it's a lot more time consuming. I recall back in the day when working for a certain organization, I wanted to create cartoon illustrations to tell a story for the brand. What I'll do is engage someone who does illustrations, get the person to sit down, understand my concept.
True.
Then the person gives me a draft. Then after that draft, I approve it. The person goes back and completes the illustration and sends it back to me. And then I kind of say, okay, this is fine. Send me the high resolution version. Person sends it to me before I deploy. All of this can take close to 3 weeks to 1 month to conclude. But at this time of day, I can sit down right here with my Mid Journey tool and my ChatGPT, tell my ChatGPT to give me a prompt, and then take it to Mid Journey and create the kind of illustration. I have opportunity to select what type of illustration I want, how it should look like, and then I can generate that. And after that, and all of this can happen in 1 hour. And when I get what I need, I can then animate it to even amplify the impact of my content. So it's not just stills now that I want to use for a comic book. I can also create the animations of the still, all with a click of a button. So there's so much opportunity. You spend less time, less resources, and you can generate. This is why a lot of people are afraid and they say our job is going to go. But the truth of the matter is, if you look back at the industrial age, I mean, in industrial revolution, the same thing is about to, it's repeating itself. your job is not going. You just need to optimize your new upskill and reskill and get into the flow and make sure that you're maximizing your the AI value that's available right now.
Thank you so much. Our time is fast spent. Thank you so much, Maurice. A if you could leave marketers and business leaders with just one piece of advice about AI marketing, what would that be?
Whatever field you're playing in your marketing, whether you're into content, whether you're into media, whether you're into whatever field you're playing in, look for the right tools that can help you optimize your output and start playing with them. Okay, that's the important thing. Start playing with them. When you do, you realize how much you can bring on the table, then you can go to the next level. I think there's if you don't mind, there's a LinkedIn article. If there's opportunity, I wish I could share it. But
No,
I
please go
but I
ahead.
know.
We can
Okay,
still accommodate a few minutes, maybe
okay. See
five, 3 minutes.
if I can look for it. But it basically gives you a should I say a method through which you can actually begin to optimize and I mean enjoy the value of AI in your own either personal workspace or as an organization as well. Okay. All right. So thank you. I would look for it.
Okay. And if you're able to share with us, we include it in the newsletter that will go out to everyone who's registered for this webinar, so as not to also take your time in case you have other things that you want to jump into right after this. Again, we want to say a very big thank you, Maurice, for this insightful section. It's a clear reminder that the Africa's AI opportunity isn't coming; it's already here. For our audience, this webinar is put together by Marketing Analytics Africa. Marketing Analytics Africa enables companies to optimize their marketing return on investment through expert analysis. We have our own AI search software application that in the development phase and will go live pretty soon. We also have on our website, you can see localized insights around the African market. And we also have events that we host, to just, again, try to help as many marketers and brand managers within the African ecosystem upskill their knowledge about what's happening, about marketing and marketing related knowledge base. Again, if you like to rewatch to this section, or if you want to share with your friend, we'll upload this on our website. You can replay on our website. Also, don't forget to join our upcoming webinar and subscribe to our newsletter. We share weekly insights every week on our newsletter. Thank you very much once again, Maurice. To our audience, thank you so much for being part of this beautiful afternoon. We'll catch up with you again, same time next month, where we bring in another speaker to come and share insights and idea about the African market. See you next week. I remain Victor Ujiakina. Thank you.